So Xdefiant's finally back with their server test weekend. I don't know about you guys, but I've been waiting a long time to get my hands on this game, so I'm happy to see it return, even if it's just for a short test. Hopefully they can get enough data and verify that everything's working properly so that the game can go gold, and we can hopefully see a full launch sometime this summer. I'm looking forward to properly grinding this game as well as giving the ranked mode a real chance. I don't know if anything will be able to hold up to the standard that Apex Legends has set when it comes to ranked, but I'm hoping that with feedback from the players and a dev team that is willing to listen, that it can shape up into something awesome. So what has changed since the last time we saw Xdefiant release as a beta? Honestly, not that much, and that's not a bad thing. The game is still as good as I remember, but you can tell they've made a bunch of small changes that make the game just work, plain and simple. There are some things that I think could be polished up, but we'll talk about those in a second. The main things they're testing here are game stability, server connection, and the new social system for partying up with your friends. I'm happy to report that everything is working as intended, and I've had zero issues with connection or really anything so far. I saw some reports that they pushed out a hotfix that could help with players getting an error code, but that's not something that I experienced in my game, and it hasn't crashed once. I've also noticed that things like hit detection and netcode seem to be working really well. Again, this is just my own experience, and you might have a different one, so let me know in the comment section down below how the game's working for you. One of the main selling points of a game like Xdefiant is that there's very little skill-based matchmaking or engagement-optimized matchmaking. Whatever you want to call it, the idea is that there's no predatory matchmaking that artificially determines what type of players you get paired up with to try and create a specific outcome that keeps you hooked on the game playing it longer. And I'm happy to say that it definitely feels more organic than Call of Duty, at least new Call of Duty. My experience so far has been a variety of gameplay, some sweaty matches, some easy matches, and most of them falling somewhere in between. Now remember, this is a playtest, so this will tend to skew a little more towards the try-hard, sweaty side of things, because those are generally the types of players that are more interested in a limited time beta or limited time playtest. So I'll be interested to see how the game feels when it finally releases and we have a more broad player base. There's also been more updates to the overall movement and mantling, which seems to be a slight improvement over the previous tests. There's still a bit of clunkiness that I hope to see ironed out, but I'll go into more detail about that later. The last few things I want to talk about that I noticed are some improvements to the UI, most notably the character selection screen in-game. It's much more clear and just looks better when picking your character. The last thing on this list of improvements that I just wanted to mention is input-based matchmaking. I noticed that it seems to do its best to pair you up with the same input when you're either playing solo or with people who are also on the same input type. I'm not sure if this was there before or if it's new, but if it's new, this is a welcome change and one that I think most mouse and keyboard players like myself have been asking for a long time in other games. If you're enjoying the video so far, do me a favor, drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're interested in a variety of first-person shooter games. Now that we've gotten the good stuff out of the way, let's talk about some improvements I'd like to see for the full launch of the game. First on my list is probably the biggest one, the overall movement. Like I said earlier, it does feel better and is moving in the right direction, but I think it could still be polished up a little bit more. The part that sticks out to me the most is the sliding mechanic. It just feels sticky at times and doesn't feel the most fluid. I'd like to see the speed that you need to start sliding reduced a bit and have the momentum of your slide or the distance be a bit further. One thing I also noticed is that there aren't really any good options to exit a slide back into a sprint. The only way that I found that works is to jump out of a slide, which isn't the smoothest experience, but also it just doesn't work well in all situations. I'd like to be able to cancel my slide and return to sprint, or hit my sprint button again while sliding to exit that slide and keep sprinting. Now, I'm in no way advocating for the garbage tack sprint slide cancel mechanics from Call of Duty, but just something a bit more fluid, similar to how it worked in a game like Black Ops 4. Next on the list is the aiming mechanics. Now, this is something that I noticed on mouse and keyboard, so if you're on controller, let me know what you think and how it feels for you. But something about tracking targets just feels a bit off. I'm not sure if there's a bit of input lag or what, but the weapons they almost felt bouncy. And no, it's not that I can't handle the recoil. It's similar to how people were saying that aiming felt floaty in the early stages of Modern Warfare 3. I wish I could describe it better and give more exact feedback, but it's just really hard to put my finger on exactly what's going on. The last thing on my list of improvements is the overall movement still feeling just a little bit clunky. Like I said, it's definitely moving in the right direction, but there's just something that feels a bit off when your player is transitioning between movement states. I think part of this is also how much side to side movement you get when you're sprinting and you press left or right on the keyboard or the joystick. If anyone at the Xdefiant team is watching this, consider clamping that max side movement while you're sprinting so that it doesn't move your character to the left or right quite as much. The overall sprint speed feels a little slow at times, and I'm not quite sure if it's the actual sprint speed or if there's a short ramp up time that makes it take a little bit of time for your player to get to full speed. I noticed in some fights when I was trying to back out and reposition that I felt stuck in that gunfight and was unable to get out. Maybe that's intentional, and honestly some people might like it. I could totally get behind and understand the idea of a game balance that forces players to be more conscious about their positioning during the match. With all that being said, is Xdefiant ready to launch? With the state the game is currently in, I think the game is absolutely ready to go gold. However, with one caveat. This game has way less bugs, issues, and crashes than something like Call of Duty, which is great from a functional standpoint, but if this game is going to finally release, they need to make sure they're also ready to follow up the launch with a roadmap of content as well as marketing behind it. Now, I'm not one of those people that whine and complain saying that, oh, the game missed its window and that it's gonna be dead on arrival. If you think the game is already dead or missed its opportunity, this game isn't for you. You're not the target market. This game isn't aimed at the vaping Fortnite kids who play whatever has the most hype on Twitch. Xdefiant has a very specific mission, and for those that appreciate the goal Xdefiant's aiming for, this is absolutely a solid game. But I will say they've definitely lost some momentum, and it's going to take work to win back some of those players. We've already heard they have new maps, weapons, and a fleshed out progression system planned and in the works. Now, that sounds great on Twitter, but when it comes to actually delivering on it, many players, myself included, will be a bit skeptical after the way the development of this game has gone so far. I've said this in the past in multiple videos, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I really enjoyed Black Ops 4's multiplayer, and this game is the closest I've seen to that type of game in a while, so I can't wait to grind the full game when it finally releases. Now, I know that not everyone is a fan of having things like character abilities in a first-person shooter game, or the semi-futuristic theme the game has. Something that would be really cool to see them add in the future, or what was called bare bones in Black Ops 4, where it was just a clean boots on the ground shooter with the abilities removed. And having a part of the game that could appeal to those players who just despise character abilities would definitely open up the game to a broader audience, as well as just give the game a little bit more variety. That being said, let me know what you think about Xdefiant in the comment section down below. Are you hyped for the release? Are you not hyped? Could you care less? If you want to watch another one of my videos on things like Apex, Call of Duty, or lesser known first person shooter games, click here.